Good evening and welcome to a special meeting of the Willits City Council. We're going to start by me surprising Supervisor Haschak and leading us to the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. Clerk.
There's no public comment.
We have a roll call.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Burton.
I am here.
Gonzalez.
Present.
Stransky.
Yes.
Alanis.
Here.
Almond.
Here. So this is a special meeting of the Willits City Council, and in just a minute, we're going to convene into closed session.
Dead serious. He's 50.
So let me explain.
Trying to get the council meeting.
Let me explain what's going to happen is we're going to go into closed session, and then we're going to come out, and I can't even give you an expectation of what hour we're coming out. It's going to be, there's several discussions. It's on the agenda if you haven't seen the agenda, and I'll read it in just a minute. We're going to have public expression for items that are specifically on the agenda tonight. I've been told I cannot offer public comment for items that are not on the agenda for a special meeting, because a special meeting is for what's on the agenda. So we're going to go into closed session. We're going to conference regarding labor negotiations pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, Agency, Negotiator, Interim, City Manager Richardson, Employee Organizations, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, Willits Police Officers Association, WPOA, and Employee Organizations, Management Team, and Unrepresented Employees. Is there anybody who would like to have public comment on the agendized items? Bear camera.
Yeah, I would just like to know, since we're here, if you can, is there some way to know, we don't want to sit here if you're going to be there an hour, when we can come back and know you're going to open up?
As I said, and that's a fair question, Bear, thank you. As I said, it is not fair for me to say, if you were asking me, Tom Allman, I would say we'll be in there an hour. But if I say an hour and we're in there a half hour, then somebody can say I misled you. But I don't think that an hour is an unreasonable time period that we're going to be in there, but we might be in there even longer. That doesn't answer your question a bit. But it's not a timed discussion in there. It's an item that's driving the conversation in there. And I think Nikki had her hand up? Yep. All right. And then Manny.
Hello, my name is Nikki Caldwell. First of all, I want to thank you, Bob, for sending an email out clarifying about the pay cut for water, wastewater. Clearly, the way it looked, everybody was supposed to be dropped too. And
We understood what the issue was.
Yeah, and with you sending it out, thank you. Second, the buyout limitation, which you guys are going to be talking about. It says in the paper that leave buyouts begun in 2024. There are no dollar recorded as leave buyout in 2023. I used to buy out my money all the time.
Nikki, we will be addressing that specific item
Okay.
in item 3, I guess.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is nothing new. Leave buyouts have been done all along since I started in 2010.
And that's going to be a public discussion. We are not discussing that in the closed room.
Perfect. All right. And I think that is all I have.
I'm not
for
going to
now.
give you a second swing at the bat. So is there anything else you want to say?
After the meeting?
No, after closed session, you can come back. Okay.
No.
Is there anybody else who would like to talk about, by all means, come on up. Good evening and thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, council. My name's Mark Wilson. I'm the business rep for the IBEW Local 1245. I apologize for looking like I just rolled out from underneath the truck, but it's been that kind of week, as some of you can understand. Daylight savings time sucks. Let's just deal with that. However, I just wanted to express my opinion that I understand. I've been following the council meetings for a long time now. And I understand the straits and the issues that the council is involved. I respect all of them. I deal with all these issues amongst all the properties that I deal with. I will, however, say that I'm a little disappointed in the lack of communication that anybody has had with the IBEW. There's been no conferring, not that we have to have a meet and confer, but there's been nobody reaching out to me wanting to know or how we're going to address this issue that the council is facing. It's a little disappointing. I'm not used to being in that type of position. Usually when we have these kind of situations, we work a little closer. But I just wanted to make that, just make that comment that I would have liked to have been at least informed, if nothing else, as things are going on. Thank God I got tremendous shop stewards that work for me, that keep me going, or work with me, that keep me kind of a little educated about what's going on. And other than that, I just want to say IBEW is fully in partnership. I mean, if the city fails to do what it needs to do, it doesn't do any good for anybody, right? So we are willing to sit down, meet, confer, and discuss all sorts of things that maybe we can do to help the city through some of these things. But anyhow, thank you for your time, and good luck tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Is there anybody else? Manny, yes.
Thank you, Council. Manuel Orozco. For the past 4 years, I've operated under a strict silence policy. Whatever my feelings were about a situation, I followed the lead of the city manager, whoever that was, and whether or not I agreed with it or not. I'm speaking to you now as a citizen of this community. When I started working for the city over 4 years ago, I walked into a disaster. There was no finance department. The staff that was around was doing their best to hold things together, but the city was 2 years behind in the audit books, and we're not even remotely ready for one. For 2 years, payroll had been done in a system designed for small businesses and not a municipality, and the ACS system held no payroll expenses. I created the finance department from scratch. I trained new staff, corrected entries, started the implementation of Springbrook, and brought payroll back to the city of Willits. I provided water and sewer rate studies. I've aligned the books with the ACS system and to the Springbrook system. That alignment was not easy. Every day had to be replicated in utility billing and cash receipting, and that meant over 3,500 separate journal entries, and I brought down 5 audits. Around the late summer of 2023, I brought up concerns about the high expenses, and instead of hiring an engineer, the plan was to avoid a $200,000 price tag and instead pay $800,000 for engineering services. That was to avoid it. That was the type of thinking that was at the time. The response I got back was to divide the finance department into 2. The front was placed under the assistant city manager, and the back half remained under me. Suddenly decisions were made to stall utility billing and the system implementation, and I argued against this, but I was overruled. I tried to implement cash receipting, and I was overruled. I then noticed the documentation for cash receipting was being tossed away, and I complained about that, and again, I was overruled. This led to our qualified opinion. I did not see any recourse, and since no one would listen to me, I had no way to go. I've heard a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking on what they would have done differently, and it's easy to state these things in comfort of a protected space, but I had no such luxury. If you're having difficulty understanding why this would be the case, I would direct you to the grand jury report. Even after all of that, I've been treated by past counsel on Facebook, I've been threatened by past counsel on Facebook, and I was even stared down in the last council meeting in an effort to intimidate me by a council member. Not past council member, sorry. Despite all efforts to impede my work in Springbrook online, I'm bringing Springbrook online, and we're finalizing the last of the bank reconciliation and cleaning up the last of the issues that were carried over from ACS. I've continued to work to fix this disaster I inherited, and I'm trying to leave it better than I had when I arrived. That's why you have numbers now.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to make a public comment regarding the agendized item? Going once, going twice? Okay, we are going to convene in closed session, and as I told Mr. Kameroff, I don't know how long we're going to be in. This is a very important meeting. This is a very important week. I appreciate you being here. Maybe you guys could do a phone tree where somebody could page everybody when we come back. Here's my obligation to you. When we come back, there will be a 15-minute recess that'll give people an opportunity to come back. Is that fair? Yes. Okay. So, council, we'll have a 15-minute break after the closed session. We're now in closed session. Thank you very much. Willits City Council has returned from closed session, and I'll report out that on item number 2, the closed session notice, that direction was given to staff. We're back into our open special meeting, and we're going to agenda item 3. I want to talk about public expression here. We're going to certainly allow public expression. However, public expression is going to be allowed at the end of, we have 3 items here. And at the end of each item, we'll have public expression. And I know in the past, people have had several times, to come back up, and we're not going to do that tonight. Tonight's going to be I really want you to compose your thoughts into concise direction, concise words, and make your 3-minute presentation if you would like to do so. So I'm going to turn it over to City Manager for the adoption of resolution declaring a fiscal emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This evening, unfortunately, we do wish to request the declaration of fiscal emergency for the City of Willits. To provide the background on this request, Mr. Heath is here, your financial consultant, to provide you with the most updated information we have, which is only now, I believe, just days old.
So as he's preparing, what is a declaration of fiscal emergency?
Cities may, in the case of an unexpected and extreme emergency, including financial emergency, make a declaration. And the impact of making a declaration, passing a resolution declaring a public emergency, fiscal emergency, is that certain contractual obligations that the city has with other parties can be relaxed. And the city, for example, if the city is in contract with collective bargaining contracts, those requirements can be waived. The city can do any reasonable and necessary thing toward the mitigation of the emergency, including layoffs and reorganization of government.
I see. Okay. Okay, Andy, it shows yours.
All right, thank you, Robert. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for the record, my name is Andy Heath. I'm a financial consultant for the city. As you know, your city adopted a budget, I believe in September this year, for the current fiscal year, fiscal 25-26. And as part of that presentation, we pointed out several issues that exist with the city's core general fund and the Measure K fund put together, whereby the fund in and of itself, given the expenditure base associated with the revenue base, is not sustainable from an ongoing perspective. Expenditures at the time we presented the budget were about $2.4 million higher than ongoing revenues. So looking at that, we wanted to make sure that those numbers were correct. As your council's aware, there have been many moving parts in the city over the last couple of years, particularly with the implementation of the Springbrook application, which is a new financial system that the city has implemented, and reconciling everything from your old ACS system into the new Springbrook system and making sure that everything is aligned correctly. There is a lot of work that is required to do that. There still remains some things that need to be done. But rest assured, in looking at the numbers that I'm looking at, in working with the finance director over the last 6 or 7 months, we've really tried to nail down exactly what the picture looks like. Okay, so even though the city's general ledger may not be completely representative of some of the numbers that you're going to see here, more than likely, it will turn out that way when everything is said and done. Since we've adopted the budget, your city has completed an audit, the audit for fiscal 23-24. That audit, if you go through it, has some different things in it, but one of the things you will see is that the general fund, combined with the Measure K fund, did actually burn money, meaning you spent more than you brought in both those funds combined. So I've got a slide that I'll go through tonight. I've also got a historical perspective on what has happened in the Measure K fund and the general fund over time. Since I think fiscal 21-22. And what we'll be going through is just some of the information that your council, I think, will be needing to ultimately or not ultimately declare a fiscal emergency for the city. So with that, I'll go through the presentation. Oh, shoot, I can't see that. Next slide. There we go. Okay. Okay, all right. And everybody can hear me okay, is that correct?
I think so. Can everybody hear Mr. Heath?
Okay, good. Okay, perfect. All right, so what I'll be doing tonight is going through this discussion outline. Why did it go back? There we go. Okay. I'll let you change the slides. Yeah. Okay. As I'll be going through this outline as part of the presentation, we'll look at the fiscal 25-26 adopted budget. That is the budget that you adopted in September, particularly as it relates to the city's general fund and the Measure K fund. Okay, these are the two main funds in the city. Outside of the city's enterprise funds for water and wastewater, these two funds house the majority of the activity, the non-capital related activity, the ongoing activity for the city. Then I'll give you a general fund budget fiscal framework looking at the base budget. So what that base budget means is trying to strip out the one-time expenditures and revenues that may exist in any particular period. So the base budget is what your ongoing picture looks like on the revenue side versus your ongoing picture into perpetuity for the expenditure side. The goal is to have revenues greater than expenditures, obviously. We'll review the audited and estimated results for the general fund and Measure K fund. I mentioned that. The general fund and Measure K fund have been updated. That forecast has been updated. So as part of the budget presentation in September, I actually did provide a forecast update for the city's general fund and the Measure K fund. Over the last couple of months, actually, especially as the audit was being completed, I have looked at your GL. I have watched your GL, your general ledger, progress in the major funds to make sure, number one, things were getting done, and they are, okay, and number two, that there were no significant changes between what was presented to this council as part of the budget process and today. In other words, that a lot of the assumptions that we made when we put the budget together on what things might look like are actually coming to fruition, and that is the case. Then we'll go through an overview of fiscal issues, at which point we'll turn it back to your city council for any questions or comments you might have. Next slide. Okay, so this is your general fund adopted budget. So you can see that the 24-20, I have included in this slide the 24-25 updated estimates. So what these estimates are what is likely to transpire for the year just finished. Okay, so not the year that you got the audit for, that was for 23-24, but the year just finished. So that process is still unfolding, but again, even today, went through some things with the finance director to make sure we're looking at things consistently and accurately, and it appears that that is the case. But in the general fund adopted budget, you can see on the bottom part of that blue box, your adopted budget, you had $6.9 million in revenues, offset by just over $7 million in expenditures. So we knew when we adopted the budget that we were likely going to use $73,000 in reserves in the core general fund, okay? Keep in mind that all of these budgets were prepared on a conservative basis, and there's a lot of things that go into a conservative basis. That means that every position that's authorized is filled for the entirety of the year, okay? Your council sets the authority for the positions that are authorized and ultimately can be filled. So we need to assume that that's the service level you expect to provide services to the community. So we assume at the beginning of the year that all those positions are going to be filled. To the extent they're not filled, you accrue what's called vacancy savings. So hopefully, by not filling a position, you're not incurring a lot of additional overtime or callback pay or other things that would otherwise offset the vacancy savings that would accrue had those positions remained vacant. Okay, so that's all built in, and then the $7 million budget that you have, with the $6.9 million in revenue for the adopted budget, keep in mind that also included a $2 million transfer in from the Measure K fund. Keep in mind that the Measure K fund only brings in about $1.2 million per year. So not only are you using what Measure K is expected to generate in the current fiscal year. You're using $800,000 of Measure K reserves that have been built up in prior years as well, just to balance the existing year's budget, 25-26.
Andy, can you address the half-cent sales tax?
Can I address it?
Well, I mean, is that in the general fund budget? The transportation
The Measure K?
No, the transportation tax?
No, it is not. It is not. That's about an $800,000 revenue source that comes
Right.
into the city specifically for transportation in a separate fund. I believe it's Fund 245. I
think so.
Okay. And that's accounted for separately, completely and separately away from the general fund and the Measure K fund.
But they were commingled. I mean, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so now let's look back at 24-25. So the top part of that blue box says what I believe 24-25 will end up at in the current fiscal year. So about $6.4 million in revenue and about $6.6 million in expenditures, using just over $200,000 of general fund balance. Again, the $6.4 million in revenue in 24-25 assumes a $1.6 million Measure K infusion coming in. So that year as well assumes the $1.2 million or so that comes in from Measure K is wholly used for the general fund, in addition to another $400,000 in reserves that have been saved up over time. So between the 2 years, 24-25 and 25-26, you're using about almost $300,000 in general fund balance. And on top of that, you're also using $800,000 and $600,000, $800,000 and $400,000, another $1.2 million in Measure K money that's been saved up over time, aside from what you bring in Measure K. Okay, so your budget is not balanced from a core general fund perspective. So when you hear me talk about the core general fund, I'm just focusing on general fund, not Measure K. The city has a history of keeping Measure K completely separate and aside from everything else general fund, and only using it for certain things that are agreed upon or used. It has not been used much in the past. Okay, the revenues come in and those revenues have been saved up over time, but indirectly you have been using those revenues in your general fund. Okay, so Measure K has been an indirect source, and as budgeted in 24-25 and 25-26, a direct source of funding for general fund activities. Okay, next slide. Okay, now let's go to the Measure K fund. So this is the adopted budget for the Measure K. So you can see the bottom part of the blue box in 25-26, back in September, about 5 months ago, we adopted a budget that had $1.1 million in Measure K revenue. So that was the expected sales tax that's going to come in from Measure K, and $2.1 million in expenditures. All of those expenditures are just transfers out. $2.0 million to the city's general fund and $110,000 to the city's capital projects fund. All right. The anticipated use of reserves for the year just finished in 24-25 out of Measure K alone, looking at it mutually exclusively from the general fund. Okay, so again, just looking at Measure K, you're using $431,000 in fund balance, like we just talked about. All right, because you're only bringing in $1.1 million, $1.2 million, and you're spending $1.6 million. And that $1.6 million is the transfer to the general fund that's budgeted for fiscal 24-25. For 25-26, the anticipated use of reserves only out of Measure K is $943,000. Okay, and that is the difference between what comes in sales tax versus what's going out for all of the transfers to the general fund and the capital projects fund. So in 25-26, the estimated ending reserves in Measure K, assuming all of this comes to fruition, all right, will be about just under $3.3 million. That's what you'll have left in Measure K. Because the city has used Measure K both directly and indirectly to, in effect, balance its budgets in the general fund and the expenditure base in the general fund that has actually transpired, these reserves should be considered general fund reserves. Okay, so that's the way you've been using it. Next slide. Okay, now I want to go back to the general fund and just focus on what the fiscal framework looks like on both the revenue side and the expenditure side. Okay, so what this graph shows is it shows your general fund revenues as budgeted for fiscal 25-26. Now, in going through the first 8 months of the fiscal year, which I've done, okay, so the things that have been posted for the first 8 months of the fiscal year don't show me really anything that's going to change these numbers. These numbers are coming in as they were projected when the budget was adopted in September for 25-26. You can see there's $6.9 million in revenues there. Of that $6.9 million, about $3.2 million of it is specifically from taxes, things like property taxes, sales taxes, transient occupancy taxes, those sorts of things. Those are discretionary revenues that are highly dependent on the economy and have everything to do with the way the economy's going. Right now, sales tax, statewide, not just for the city of Willits, but statewide, sales tax is very stagnant if it's not going down. Okay, that's just the way things are going right now, pretty much everywhere across the state. Property taxes, for a while there, we had 6, 7, 8% growth in some cities, and now we're seeing that come back down to a more practical level, maybe 3, 4, 5%. So again, it just ebbs and flows with the economy and all impacts of the economy, from the federal economy all the way down to the local economy, with obviously the state in between, and that's a huge player in the way that you collect your taxes and how much taxes you end up collecting. I only say that because those taxes are the ones that can fluctuate the most, okay? You can see the rest of the pie, and I'm going to hold the transfers in out right now because that's just a one-time revenue that comes in from another fund, so we're not going to count that. So you're really only looking at $4.9 million in core general fund revenue that is budgeted for the existing fiscal year 25-26, 3.2 million of which comes from taxes, those taxes I mentioned. The rest of it is all broken up in those other little pieces of the pie where you can see there's fines, use of money and property, that's interest earnings and rental earnings, governmental revenues, revenues from other sources in the government, maybe grants, charges for services, for things like fees and charges that you charge for the different services you provide, and then licenses and permits would be your building activity, planning fees, those sorts of things. So those don't change too much, okay? But those two, in many cases, ebb and flow with the economy and the way things are going in the city, particularly development. Then you have that last little piece of, well, actually the last large piece of the pie, transfers in. That's $2 million, okay? That is purely from Measure K. Now keep in mind, Measure K is only going to bring in just under 1.2 million in 25-26. So because it's moving $2 million into the general fund to create your balanced budget in the general fund, $7 million in expenditures, $7 million in revenues, you're relying on that 1.2 million in revenue that you're going to collect and another $800,000 in revenue that was previously collected in prior fiscal years, Measure K reserves. Okay, next slide. All right, some of the key revenue, general fund revenue key items, So one of the things we need to do, and I mentioned this, is we need to review the property tax growth. So when a budget is put together, you never want to get ahead of revenues, and you never want to underestimate expenditures. So you want to prepare it conservatively, not overly conservatively, okay, because you don't want to miss anything either. But at the same time, putting a budget together, unless I knew there was significant growth in a community, or you had a lot of properties that were on what's called the Prop 8 roll, where they're undervalued at the base level because of the recession or whatever, and they can still come back up more than 2%, which is the Prop 13 max. You have to evaluate all that. And where I may have evaluated 6 or 7% growth in certain cases because of those sorts of things, development and the Prop 8 roll, I'm not doing that anymore, okay? Because there's just, I don't know if there's significant development going on in this town that's going to add a significant amount to your secured valuation base. It's going to grow your property taxes much more than 3% or so. And the 3% is going to be contingent on resales of homes at a base higher than what they were being paid for on property taxes before. So it all depends. But never try to get ahead of that. And for your city, we may have underestimated just a little bit, and we'll know more once we get some questions answered by the Mendocino County Tax Collector's Office on the first payment that we got for the secured roll. Okay, we have some significant questions for them to make sure that we're looking at the numbers correctly, because I don't think they're correct at this point. Sales tax is based on the most recent forecast, so you do contract with, I believe, Avenue Insight Community Services for your sales tax consultant, and they provide you a quarterly update on sales tax, and then more importantly, they give you a forecast on what is likely to transpire in the future. Revenues for the current fiscal year include one-time grant funding of $233,000. So when you look at that $6.9 million, $233,000 of that is just that, one time. Okay, that's not going to come in next year unless you get another grant, and then you have obviously offsetting expenditures associated with that grant. It includes a significant amount of miscellaneous revenues, which is going to be adjusted downward with the mid-year adjustments. It's about $250,000, $275,000. Those miscellaneous revenues were actually received in fiscal 24-25, so we need to adjust 25-26 downward for that. We're in the process of putting mid-year together now. You're going to see some flavors of mid-year in some of the numbers that I'm presenting to you tonight for the general fund, but I'll call that out when that's the case, and that's one of them right there. And then Measure K provides $2 million in funding to the core general fund. So I'm going to reiterate this over and over again, that the general fund, the core general fund, is heavily reliant on Measure K to balance its budget. Keep in mind that although Measure K brings in $1.2 to $1.3 million a year, Measure K, for purposes of this discussion, should be considered a one-time revenue because it's only 4 more years, a little over 4 more years, okay? It sunsets in 4 years. If it's not reenacted, it goes away, and you now have an exacerbated problem because you don't have that Measure K money to rely on. Okay, let's go on to the next slide here. So this is the general fund budget fiscal framework on the expenditure side. So when you look at the expenditures, you can see that the majority, more than 3/4 of the expenditures are in salaries and benefits, $5.5 million of the $7 million budget, okay? Then you have operating and other expenses. This is what it takes to run the city outside of staff. So supplies, materials, fuel, contracts, all the things that it takes to do the job, auto costs, all these things. That's another $1.4 million. The transfers out represents the transfers out for the city's share, the general fund share, of the information technology costs. So these are things for like licenses for the software that you guys use. And also for any IT costs that you have from a professional services perspective. And then there's a small amount of capital. I think that's just for maybe capital outlay, not yet, for the police department or something like that, but a very small amount. But you can see here that 79% of your budget in the general fund is staff, okay? That's pretty significant, okay? The amount budgeted for base salaries and expenditures alone, $5.5 million, exceeds the $4.9 million, which is overstated because of that adjustment to the miscellaneous revenues that needs to happen. But it exceeds the $4.9 million core general fund revenue amount, just for salaries and benefits alone. Now, the salaries and benefits number, yes, does include all authorized positions in the city, including those that are currently vacant. And those that are currently vacant are about $682,000, and that's for every position. That's the general fund share of the cost, but that's for every position that's vacant. You're going to see a different number in your staff report, but I'm including a currently vacant police officer position as well. Okay, so I've added that just for flavor to the conversation. Okay, but takeaway from this slide is these are your costs. The majority of your costs are related to salaries and benefits in the general fund. And on top of that, the total salaries and benefits costs in the general fund, if every position was filled for the entirety of the year, actually exceeds the revenue base for the general fund.
Did you make any estimation of where we are in overtime for the year?
I didn't really look at that specifically. I did look at that 2 or 3 weeks ago when I was putting together some of the mid-year numbers, and for comparability purposes, for the right reasons, overtime, I believe, is kind of where it should be, and I'll tell you why I'm saying it that way. Right now, you have a significant amount of vacancies in the police department where the majority of the overtime is incurred for both police operations and police dispatch. Okay? Because you have a high level of vacancies in those departments, and furthermore, because you have a level of service that you're required to provide and that you have to provide to your community, those shifts that are left uncovered are typically covered by overtime, whether it's police operations or police staff. In looking at that, I haven't seen really anything that leads me to believe that, you know, it's going nutsoid in one way or another, but it's more consistent with what I'm expecting. I'll say that further because I'm not changing too much on the expenditure side for the mid-year budget. There's not many changes. I think when we put the budget together, we put it together late. Okay, so it was adopted in September, so we already had a little bit of activity that we knew was going to, well, had transpired and was likely to continue to transpire. That's all pretty much come into fruition. So that's what we're looking at. Okay, all positions are assumed filled, and again, that's that $682,000 there. So that $682,000, I want to say, is for like 6 or 7 positions in the general fund. Includes cost allocations to other funds for administrative-related expenditures. So that your expenditure base is also reduced by a certain amount to account for cost allocations to other funds. So not allocations of staff per se, because you split that out in your GL and charge the right percentage to the right fund, and it's accounted for that way. This is for administrative-related cost allocation, where you're taking your legal costs, your personnel costs, your HR costs, your finance costs, city manager's costs, those sorts of things that serve the city as a whole all the time, and rightfully so, transferring out a portion of those based on some methodology to other funds. Okay, so all of these costs have been reduced for that. And that's about 39.1% that's transferred to other funds. It includes an allocation of CalPERS unfunded liability costs attributable to the general fund. That's $751,000 for the current fiscal year. And that's significant. And that's not a cost that's likely to go away. And that's a cost you have to pay. You don't have a choice to cut that cost. Okay? And then salaries and benefits costs make up the majority of the general fund-based budget. I think we went through that on the previous slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, this slide's kind of involved, and I apologize. I tried to make this as clear as possible to show you a lot of information in one slide. But what this slide is showing you is the entire forecast update for the general fund budget fiscal framework. And this is looking at the general fund and the Measure K fund, okay, fiscal activities. So both funds are combined for purposes of looking at what we're looking at here. You can see that I've included the recent 3 audited years on the first 3 columns there, 21-22, 22-23, 23-24. I put where we're likely to end up in 24-25 as we continue closing out the current, the immediately past fiscal year, and then where we're likely to end up with the 25-26 today. The green box that's highlighted towards the top, the numbers in the green box represents the aggregate reserves, okay? Those aggregate reserves are both the general fund reserves at the end of that year and the Measure K fund reserves at the end of that year combined, okay? So if you look at this correctly, in fiscal 21-22, at the end of that fiscal year, you had aggregate reserves in Measure K and general fund combined of $5.2 million. All right. In the white box, that represents the net surplus or deficit that has resulted from Measure K and the general fund combined. So you can see in 21-22, there was a large surplus, $1.9 million, and there's a reason for that. That's because you got a lot of CARES Act COVID money that came in, and the spending wasn't as high then as it is right now from an ongoing perspective. And then it goes in ebbs and it goes from there. So what this is showing essentially is that over time in the green box, and you can see you went from 5.2 to 5.6 because you had a net surplus. Now keep in mind, these numbers include Measure K. Okay, so all of the Measure K money that's coming in on the sales tax is included as a source, all right? So it's assumed to be in the mix, in the play at this point. So for those 2 years, which were COVID-related years, and the CARES Act money that came in, 1.9 million came in, and then another 300, just under 400,000 was the surplus, and then it stopped, okay? In 23-24, in the audited year, the just audited year, you actually used almost $500,000 more than you brought in the core general fund and Measure K combined, okay? That number also includes a $476,000 prior period adjustment to the positive, okay? So this is something that should have happened either from a revenue perspective or an expenditure perspective in a previous year, okay? So I've adjusted that in there. So if I took that out, you'd actually have about a $900,000 deficit total in fiscal 23-24. And these numbers are right out of the audit that you just received, okay?
Mr. Heath, though, for the 23-24 audited year, the one you're just referring to, so that 5 million green box there.
That $5.1 million
That's the
represents
total of the revenues, and you're saying the revenues, both the general fund and Measure K combined?
the reserves.
The reserves?
Yes, the reserves. So that is the amount in reserves that you have in the general fund and Measure K fund combined,
It's
yes.
all of Measure K, though? Is it all of Measure K?
It's
How about that?
Measure K period, yep.
Okay.
Measure K period, yep. It's what's in Measure K at the end of the day, and it's what's in general fund at the end of the day in the bank, in reserves, okay? So when everything else on the balance sheet settles, all your receivables are received and all your payables are paid, all that goes to cash in one way or another. Cash equals reserves. That reserve number in your audit is reserves. Ultimately, that will be your cash number once everything settles. In 24-25, you can see that we're estimating to use about $648,000 in net revenues, okay? So that means we're using that much money, about $650,000. Now, let me put that into context. On top, within that $648,000 use, you're using all of Measure K, okay? Because that is considered as a source in this graph.
This is us zeroing out Measure K every single
It's
year.
where you end up at the end of the day from both funds combined, okay?
Even then, it would still be short.
You're going to use you're going to use all of Measure K, and you're going to have a result, because you're combining both funds, of about $650,000 use of reserves. So your reserves in Measure K and the general fund combined are going to go from 5.1 to just under 4.5, okay? Similarly, if we parlay this out one more year into 25-26 with the adopted budget that you just approved 5 months ago, we're going to use another just over $1 million, okay, in those two funds combined, and that also assumes that you use the Measure K money that's coming in, okay? So what I'm trying to show here is, from a core general fund perspective, if we pull out Measure K, your core general fund is $2.3 to $2.4 million in the hole, which is the number we've been saying, and we said 5 months ago when we adopted the budget. So we're looking at this a little bit differently. We're looking at it based on real numbers that have been audited. We're looking at it based on real activity that has already been booked and posted in fiscal 24-25, and we're looking at it based on what has actually transpired so far for the first 8 months in fiscal 25-26. Not much has changed based on what we presented. So your reserves are likely to go from just under 4.5 to just under 3.5, okay? So you're using reserves. When that number in the green box hits zero, Measure K doesn't have any more money, and neither does the general fund. It's all gone, okay?
And so, let me just say, I'm not trying to go to the last chapter, but if we continue the way we're going, is that a prediction you're making?
Yes.
You have 2 years.
Sorry?
Excuse me. Said you have 2 years.
So, okay. All right. Total general fund, Measure K fund reserves drop over 30%. These are just some of the notes on the side over the last 4 years. Okay. Fiscal activity assumes Measure K fund has been directly or indirectly considered as a general fund source. Okay, so we've gone over that. I'm really trying to hit that home. that you've been using Measure K, whether you think you've been using it or not.
You've made that point
Okay?
perfectly.
Right. Okay. If budgeted vacant positions are filled, deficit's expected to continue to grow. No salary savings will be absorbed. So keep in mind that for all those previous years that are audited, you actually had salary savings that resulted, okay? For the last 2 years, there's nothing built in yet for salary savings, okay? So you're gonna see something probably in 24, 25. Actually, the 24, 25 number does have some salary savings. I did update that based on what has already transpired for the first 7 months of the year, okay? So that is updated. There will be a little bit more if those positions stay vacant. And then fiscal 23-24 deficit includes that prior period adjustment that I mentioned, which is articulated in the audit that you received a couple of weeks ago. So I think we got through that slide.
Mr. Heath, can I ask about that number, the 476,000? So,
Which number, I'm sorry?
the last one you mentioned about the deficit, including the 476,000 prior period
Yes, yeah.
adjustments, yes? So when we went through those numbers in our financial committee meeting, that number was at 700,000. But did we find?
I think that's the citywide number.
Oh, that's the citywide?
Yes,
That's
so the
what-
476 is just related to the general fund.
Got it.
Yep, general fund portion.
Thank you, sir.
Good call. Okay, next slide. All right, so forecast, budget update, key assumptions. So again, these are just assumptions, and I've kind of gone over a few of these already that are used when we put the forecast and update the forecast on an ongoing basis. Fiscal 25-26 budgeted staffing levels assumed for all years in the forecast. So whatever the staffing levels and whatever the distribution of the staffing levels is to all the funds is assumed for the entirety of the budget. Now, keep in mind, when we adopted the budget in September, we had a conversation about how staff was partitioned out to the different funds, and that I thought you might need a more scientific method of actually looking at how any particular position is distributed to the general fund, vis-a-vis the water fund, vis-a-vis the wastewater fund, in any other fund that you use. I don't know that that really existed, other than thinking off the top of your head how much of a percentage of one person or any particular position actually works in those funds. But it may behoove you as a city to be fiscally prudent and get that number as close to accurate as possible. Having said that, more than likely, I believe that general fund costs may go up as a result of that, because a lot of staff is being costed and charged to other funds. All positions are assumed filled for the entirety of the fiscal year. There is no vacancy savings built in from basically this point forward. So as we put the forecast together and we update it, I'm adding in all that vacancy savings. I have a methodology to do that. I know what actual costs are through today. Therefore, the costs are being built in, and then I can extrapolate that into the future and take into account what the vacancy savings is likely to be. Cost allocations to other funds prepared consistent with the 25-26 and prior year methodology, so no changes there. And in the Measure K transfers for future years not considered as part of the general fund forecast. Okay, so keep in mind, Measure K is 1.2 million a year. So when you look at the general fund forecast, now I'm not including Measure K unless it's been transferred, okay, which is the next slide. Okay, so now this is the Measure K. This is not Measure K, this is the general fund forecast, okay? Because those transfers in from Measure K were budgeted in fiscal 24-25 and in the current fiscal year for $1.6 and $2 million respectively, they're built into these numbers, okay? But every other year, they're not, because nothing happened. So in fiscal 23-24, you had a $2.2 million use of fund balance in the core general fund. In fiscal 24-25, because you transferred in $1.6 million from Measure K, you only had a $216,000 use of fund balance. So you add 216 to 1.6, so that's about a 1.8 million core general fund use if you don't include that Measure K transfer in. In fiscal 25-26, there's a scheduled transfer in from Measure K for $2 million. Okay, if you add that or take that away as a transfer in, your core general fund deficit is likely to be just over $2 million at $2,063,000. For the years in the forecast, 26-27, all the way through the rest of it, I've assumed no Measure K. Okay, so I'm just looking at what the core general fund looks like. So we're back down to that $4.6 million revenue number instead of that inflated number, using the Measure K one way or another. And you're looking at the expenditure base that is right around $6.97 million, because that's not changing, okay? Keeping in mind that all the assumptions that are used to prepare the forecast are still in play. All positions are filled for the entirety of the year. Nothing really changes. Nominal revenue growth, nominal expenditure growth at the same time. So I'm building in inflators over each year, and all of that is built in. But those positions are filled. All of them are filled. So if you don't fill the $682,000 worth of positions that you currently have on the books, let's just say for all those years out there, you don't fill them. All those numbers go down or go up by $682,000. You save that. So instead of being 2.7, it's going to be 2.1.
But we still have the overtime.
Yes.
Which amounts to $700,000, $800,000 a year right now.
For overtime?
I think so.
I'm not sure.
Close to it.
Yeah. We can do a lot of analysis on overtime, so, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Heath, may I ask you a question before you move on? In the 23-24 audited thing here, the orange line is our expenditures, the blue line is our revenue, obviously one for the other. But, I mean, like, when the city council passed that, they didn't pass a budget in which they spent way more than the others. So, like, how is this reflecting the idea that regardless of what was passed, the reality shows they actually spent more than what they budgeted? Is that what we're looking at when we see that difference?
Right.
I mean, like in 24-25, I mean, that's a smaller difference, 216,000, but I mean, we didn't pass a budget where we were 216,000 in the hole.
Right.
But the reality is that we're not budgeting in a correct fashion enough to even make that plan. And that gap really signifies that we're way wrong. We were a little bit closer more recently, but I just wanted to kind of make sure I understood that aspect of this graph.
Correct.
That's what that accounts for that. Because we shouldn't be seeing any difference.
Typically.
I mean,
yeah.
or at least.
And I think in that year, there were probably a lot of expenditures in the general fund that were incurred as a result of the saving up of the ARPA money.
Right.
That was posted to the general fund. So that's why it's isolated there.
Okay.
In a perfect world,
Right.
when you talk about things like ARPA, okay, and you talk about things like major capital projects, I would, from a best practices perspective, track those completely outside of the general fund, in their own fund, and carry the negative balance there. Because all you do when you mix that stuff in with the general fund and you cross years from when the expenditure's made and the revenue's collected or vice versa, it just skews things. And it invites so many questions, and ultimately it's audited, and it just goes like this. And it's really difficult to explain that situation in a lot of cases.
The city used to do that. Was it compelled to do this by some new?
No, you're not compelled to do it, and that's why I said best practices. I mean, if I were in a city, that's the way I would do it. Okay, and that's the way I've done it in the past in multiple jurisdictions that I've worked with.
Thank you, sir.
Core expenditure base, 2.4 to 2.7 million higher than the core revenue base. So again, this just looks at the general fund. Infusion of Measure K revenues, 1.2 to 1.3 million annually, not sufficient to address the deficits. So this is where we start getting into Measure K being indirectly used as part of the general fund result, ultimately from year to year. Because when you have deficits like 2.6 or 2.4 million, you're relying on that 1.2 million to come in. But you still have a $1.2 million problem, okay? And even if you kept those positions vacant and you reduced it by, say, another $500,000, taking into account the increase in overtime, you still have a $700,000 problem, okay? A real problem. So now you've eliminated your vacant positions and you have used all of Measure K, the only other discretionary source available to you for these types of expenditures, and you still have a $700,000 issue to resolve at some point in time, okay? And it needs to be, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money on your general fund. When your general fund only brings in 4.6 million or so in revenue, $700,000 represents a significant portion of that.
Is it a standard practice of cities to pool their cash?
Pooling the cash?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, I recommend a pooled cash situation everywhere. Yep, because collections of cash in at any certain time in any given fund are going to ebb and flow. The general fund, you don't get, for cities with their revenue base, their highest collecting revenue, the revenue they collect the most of in the general fund is typically property tax, okay? Well, property taxes don't come in until January typically, that first payment. So you've got to get through almost 7 months of the fiscal year without collecting any property tax if you're on the teeter plan, okay, and you are. So you got to get through that. And cities that collect millions of dollars in property tax are trying to ride that out. And many organizations, especially like school districts and some special districts, rely on what's called dry period financing through the county, where they actually adopt a resolution as a governing board, and they go and they say, we need to borrow money from the county at the pooled interest rate, whatever their pooled interest rate is, and they borrow that money until they get those taxes, okay, and then they pay them back. So a lot of organizations do that. But yeah, it's pooled cash is a good thing. As long as you have cash. You have to have cash, to have pooled cash. And then again, just to reiterate, Measure K is expected to sunset in fiscal 3031. Okay, so it's expected to go away at this point. Next slide. Okay, so this looks at the net unassigned fund balance of now the general fund and the Measure K fund. And what I tried to show here is when the city crosses over under its given budget scenario and forecast scenario. All right. What reserves have been in the past in Measure K and the general fund combined, and then what they're likely to drop to in fiscal 28-29. That's the year where you'll go from a positive fund balance in both funds combined to a negative fund balance, assuming, of course, everything holds true in what we've been talking about. All the positions are filled, blah, 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 all that stuff, okay? At that point, the city has no remaining reserves, and you are hopefully in a position where you have cash somewhere else, or better yet, you figured out what to do so you don't get to this point, because that's where we need to go. Next slide. This slide just portrays your revenue base in the general fund and Measure K fund in the different forecast in a different light. This is just the general fund, okay? So you can see the general fund revenue base about 4.6 million. General fund expenditure base about it's between 7 and 7.2 million. This number changed, by the way, so in some of the information that you received as part of the staff report has a deficit of 2.4 million. Some of this information says 2.6 million, and the reason for that is because of your insurance costs. So the city just recently paid its insurance bills for fiscal 25-26. And they were a little bit more than expected in the general fund. So the general fund share came in a little bit higher. So I'm starting to adjust for that in some of the work that I'm doing. And that's why these numbers are ebbing and changing a little bit. But nonetheless, they're real. And we just went through that today and looked at those costs. What this is showing you is that red bar, the expenditures, is outpacing the green bar on an ongoing basis by about 2.65 million. So there again is that number that your deficit is. Below that, I have your major components of cost. Okay, we all know that the largest component of cost is those staff costs, staff and benefits, just under 5.9 million for the general fund. In liability and property insurance, about 375,000 a year. Not much you can do with that. In fact, I would project that's probably going to go up. And then your other operating costs, net the cost allocation that goes out to the other funds, about just under $1 million. So there's just not a lot of play here, okay? You're really relying on that vacancy savings, and you're really relying on not spending money to obtain a balanced budget. And even if you, it's gonna have to come from some sort of I had a slide on that. Some sort of reorganization or something where you need to look at things a little bit differently on how you spend money in the future. The vacant positions, just so everybody knows, that $682,000 is made up of an assistant city manager position. And this is just a general fund component of cost. Okay, so many of these positions, other than the public safety positions that are mentioned, are split funded between the general fund and other funds. It's just the general fund component, 682. Assistant city manager, part-time office assistant, and that's in finance, which was a very small budget for that for this year. So that hasn't been filled all year. Admin assistant in the police department, dispatcher in the police department, police officer in the police department, and then 2 police sergeants in the police department. So you can see that the majority of these positions are public safety related. Okay, next slide. And this is the last slide. Okay, overview of the fiscal issues. What are the issues? What are some of the takeaways from everything that's going on here? General fund based expenditures are about 2.4 to 2.65 million more than base revenues. We've talked about that in several different ways in looking at the information that's been presented. Measure K annual sales tax and reserves have been used to mitigate, but not eliminate, the general fund deficit in 24-25 and 25-26, where you have $1.65 and $2 million respectively being transferred from Measure K to the general fund. Measure K sales tax sunsets in 2030-31, and that represents about $1.2 to $1.3 million, depending on the year of revenue that's coming in. The fully loaded labor costs make up a majority of the base budget, 5.8 to 5.9 million. It's about 78% of the whole budget. Positions currently vacant, including the 3 sworn police positions, amount to 682,000. And then the final bullet there is to strategize methodologies for balancing the general fund core budget and forecasts, increasing core general fund reserves. Keep in mind, you're exhausting your reserves, okay? You're in the process of exhausting your reserves. A stable city, a fiscally prudent city, needs to have reserves, okay? For your city, 40 to 50% would be a decent number of your budget, okay? Well, that's a couple $1 million, $2 or $3 million. You've got to have that set aside because things come up, whether it be legal issues that are not resolved or not able to be paid for by insurance claims or anything like that, whether it be economic issues where you have ebbs and flows in the economy and the economy tanks and like it did in 2007, 2008, and sales tax goes down and property tax goes down, which is real, very real, okay? Reserves are used to mitigate all of these things. And then you need to have something set aside for capital that might come up. If you need an air conditioner for the building because the air conditioner goes out, or if you need a new car for the police department, or anything. You have to have the ability to do that. Otherwise, it's going to really impact your level of service ultimately if you don't replace that or fix it. How can you do that? What are the methodologies? So cost reductions, obviously. Program and service efficiency and reorganization opportunities where that's possible. And then you have to continue to use Measure K at this point until everything is balanced. And ultimately, the Measure K issue, $1.2 to $1.3 million issue, will need to be addressed by this city at some point in time in the next 4 years to assure it continues, or if it doesn't continue, that you address the revenue shortfall in your expenditure base. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions or entertain any comments that your council might have. Bruce?
Well, I think you did a good job of rationalizing the resolution for a fiscal emergency. So I think you made the points, in my opinion, you made the points necessary to validate that. Andy, you suggested that there may be some, you expressed an opinion about the property tax revenues not correct. Could you expand on that?
All I mean by that is the way the county of Mendocino pays its property taxes to the city is on the teeter plan, okay? So you get 55% of your secured valuation, typically in sometime late December, after December 10th when property taxes are paid, typically in January. You get, in this county, I think it's 37% comes in May after the April payment, and then the other 8% 7 or 8%, it's one or the other, comes at typically in August, okay, when everything is trued up. So you have to accrue that back to the previous fiscal year. Those are your three essentially your three main payments of property taxes for your secured valuation. Your secured valuation and the property taxes you collect from the secured roll is about $500,000 a year.
Right.
Okay? On top of that, you get what's called a VLF payment, okay, which is a motor vehicle in lieu pursuant to a long, long time ago when the whole triple flip came down. I can't remember what year that was, 2004 or something like that. And that money actually is paid in lieu of what you used to get as motor vehicle license fee that was transferred over to the schools and then backfilled by the state through this triple flip. And now you get that. Well, that also grows at the secured valuation rate. Okay, and that's a real number, and that's also a pretty big number, $600,000 a year. Okay, so $1.1 million a year revenue comes from those two sources alone. The way Mendocino County pays that is they issue an advice, okay, when they make the payment, and I'm not sure if they pay by check or if they wire that in, and I think it's by check though, and it articulates what portion of property tax that's for. Okay, well this year, when they paid the first payment for property tax, which only should have been 55% of $500,000, it was actually not 900, I think it was 900 and something thousand that they paid in that line, or 500 and something thousand that they paid in that line. That can't be right. Okay, it should be a different amount. So I think they have a misclassification and or an overpayment that ultimately will need to be given back or adjusted at some point in time when they make the next payment of that secured roll. So I've made phone calls, we've reached out an email, and we're actively trying to resolve that issue to find out what's going on. Now, is it going to mean anything different in these numbers? No. Okay, because I've only assumed that you're going to receive $500,000 in secure property tax. So, but because of this issue, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page in how things are being paid.
Yeah, I mean, I got my attention because years and years ago, we had a conflict with the county over the payment of that amount, and back in Gordy Martin days, and I forget. Gordon Logan, excuse me, and it was his brother-in-law was the county auditor, whose name escapes me, but they went toe to toe, and it was a fairly complex algebra kind of equation to figure that out.
It is.
And Gordon was convinced that the county owed us.
And again, I'm not suggesting that anything wrong has been done.
No, I'm not suggesting, and I wasn't suggesting either.
Yeah.
I was suggesting it was an uncomfortable situation because this was Gordy's good friend, and he went to bat for the city and said they owed us some more money, and he turned out to be right. So
nothing would please me more if in fact your secured valuation went up to $900,000 or $500,000, you know, whatever it should be, if you divide that by 55%. So,
not right now.
All right, Jerry.
And I'm going to probably restate the obvious because I think you have done a good job of explaining our emergency situation, but I guess it sounds like the only thing left to us at the moment, the immediacy, unless we can think of something else, is to cut staffing or figure out different ways of doing things with staff, because it doesn't sound like on the other options right now we can make those changes.
Ultimately, that's the council's purview, and that's the administration's purview. My only objective here tonight was to point out the reality of your budget and what those percentages look like.
I'm just looking at what can we do
80%
today.
of your budget is in staff.
Yeah, I mean, I was
That's a
going to say
reality.
that seems like it's in most organizations, staffing seems to be the issue.
That 80% of your budget that's in staffing is more than your revenue base.
And I know that when you came to us a couple months ago, you said we'd probably be here.
Correct.
And I think we wanted good numbers before we made any decisions.
Correct.
And it sounds like you've...
So I think I told you in September that I was 95% good.
Yep.
I'm about 98% now.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what the other council members said. I appreciate you sharing the information on here, and I really just wanted to double down on a couple of ideas that sometimes the community gets misunderstood. And that is that from what I heard you explain here with the need to declare a financial emergency, this is certainly not the fault of one person. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Okay, because I
Absolutely.
know that some people and certain individuals have been taking a lot of heat as if everything that's ever been decided ever in the whole history of the world is following one person. And I think there's a lot of people who need to be held accountable for this. And if we're going to hold anybody accountable, we need to understand it's more than just one person. Additionally, I would like to suggest or propose the idea that, based upon what we heard, that this is a multiple year thing. That this was not just something that everything was fine, and then 1 year it just all fell apart because of one management or one decision. I mean, we heard an audit presentation last time from our auditor, Ben, who mentioned a number of red flags, each one of them going back many, many years. And I just wanted to thank you for pointing out that some of these issues have been deep and long-standing, not just in the last year or two. This is a deep-seated problem, meaning that I want the community to understand that it's going to take multiple years to be turned. We didn't get here in 1 year, and we're not going to fix it in 1 year. We might hold some person accountable, but it's a lot of people need to be held accountable, and it doesn't necessarily mean that things are fixed, because now we've figured the right person, we got the right person identified. So I just really appreciate your mathematical way of looking at this problem and bringing it really to everybody's attention, that this is really just the first step of hopefully many steps. We need to put ourselves in the right direction, because it's going to take more than one step. This is just, as my colleague was saying earlier, just the first bite at the apple.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's a situation of circumstance.
Indeed. Thank you, sir.
And we did have the audit presented to us the last meeting, and I asked a very clear question to the auditor of, is there anything criminal or negligent that you can pinpoint? And he answered, and you've looked at our numbers very, very closely, microscopically probably. Is there anything criminal or negligent that you could say, on this date, at this time, this incident happened, and that's why we're in this situation?
No, not at this point. And, I haven't done a super in-depth forensic analysis, if you will, of, the different transactions and things like that. Things that essentially may have led the auditor to give you a qualified opinion, where certain information may not have been available in a certain circumstance. But outside of that, no, I have not seen anything. This is just an accounting for things in different places and trying to hone it all in, make sure it's in the right place, make sure it's accounted for correctly. Again, it's a situation of circumstances where you went from ACS, I think was a former system, to Springbrook and everything in between, and staff changes and resource changes and turnover, just all this stuff led to where you're at.
And I've been in government for over 40 years, and you said 79% of our budget goes towards personnel benefits, salary and benefits. That's not an unusual number, right? 79%?
No, and not particularly for a small city like this. But the reason I point out that 80% number is because it's 80%, okay? And as Councilmember Gonzalez suggested, that's that. Where else are we going to cut?
I get it.
So, yeah.
All right, does it count, Bruce?
Just one.
Then we're going to open up the city to comments.
Just one follow-up, being as we are 7-8 months into the year, and these unfilled positions and the saving, are you noticing anything in the expenditures of the general fund that are representative of saving any money from that lack of hiring those people?
Am I seeing anything in the results that have ensued by saving that money? Yes, I am, because I would have expected the prior deficits to be higher, like I'm projecting the prior deficits to be without the savings that has not been earned yet. Okay? So once we pull out, or if you pull out at some point in time, those positions from that base, and I readjust everything in the model, and I pull those costs out completely, you're going to see that number come down. Okay, it's going to come down by some number. Now, I may make an assumption based on what I've heard the council discuss and what the reality of the situation is around overtime or increased callback pay or increased coverage associated with the service level that needs to be provided absent those positions not being there.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else from the council? All right, so we're going to open up to public expression.
Can we make a motion and a second to pass the resolution and then open it up? Or at least make a motion?
I'd
and a
actually
second?
rather hear public expression. I mean, we might, I want to hear what people say. It might change someone's mind.
I'm just saying a motion. Without a motion and a second, you don't even know that you're going to have.
All right,
Amen, brother.
all right. So we've heard some, a lot of information. And we're going to open up public expression. Is there anybody who would like to entertain a motion to that? You can make your own motion.
I'd make a motion of an adoption of a resolution declaring a physical emergency and waive the reading as it was presented in the agenda.
I'd like to second the motion, please.
Motion and a second. All right,
Okay, then I'd open it up to public.
all right. So, Helen, you're up.
Helen Sims. Can I address the org charts that are in the package? That was not,
That we're going to talk about that in the next item, item number 4.
I'll come back.
Okay, but is there anything you want to say on the fiscal emergency?
No.
Okay. Anybody else on fiscal emergency? Open it up.
I guess I have a question, Tamara Alanis. The declaration of the fiscal emergency being for the general fund only, are we going to be going back and addressing those enterprise fund budget overruns, or is that going to be sometime done in the future?
Tonight's issue is the general fund and Measure K fiscal emergency.
Only. Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Public expression on this item, the agenda item is closed. To the council. Discussion. No discussion? To the clerk.
I'm fine.
Okay, to the clerk.
Councilmember Burton.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Alanis.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye. Okay, so we have adopted a resolution declaring a fiscal emergency for the city of Willits. All right, we're moving on to item number 4, the adopted resolution approving a reorganization of city departments in response to the declaration of a fiscal emergency, establishing new classifications and the related classification specifications of pay ranges, and authorizing the interim city managers to initiate layoffs and transfers.
I guess not, it looks like.
And take other necessary administrative actions to affect the changes. And I just will say this. I've only been on this council for 15 months, and I can't think of a harder decision because we're addressing people's livelihood, and I know every person by name. And if anybody thinks that this is an easy time to be on city council, you're grossly mistaken, because this is something that has caused many sleepless nights. So what the agenda item that we're about to entertain and discuss, and hopefully hear lots of comment, is not an easy agenda item to publicly talk about, but it has to be done.
Mr. Mayor, I need about 2 minutes.
All right.
You can do a little introduction or something.
Nope. We will take a 2-minute break.
Thank you.
We're taking a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. Okay. We are back in session from break. Next agenda item is, I know my timer's going to go, so I need to stop it here, cancel. The adoption of the resolution approving reorganization of the city departments and to the interim city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. First off, let me hand over the mic to Deborah. She has a few document changes she wants to make prior to the presentation.
So I'm Deborah Muchmore. I'm a consultant assisting the city, and I'm only here to make some technical corrections in the packet. Yes. Oh, not this. I have to speak up. I'm losing my voice. I'm sorry, but I'll try. My husband would have been happy. So there are, on the dais and in the back, there are water and wastewater operator classifications that are replacing the classifications in your packet. Thankfully, someone noticed that and it was me, I'm admitting to it, I accidentally pulled a 2017 document for both of those. Had you approved it, the importance of that would be that it would have lowered their rates, and we don't want that to happen. So those are for the record and official now, and will go in the resolution before it's signed. Also, in the title page, the city planner limited term was in the title, but it was not included in the packet. When the PDF was made, it was not in there. So that is here tonight. And you have two of those because the title for the supervisor was incorrect. And then the admin services technician, some additional information came in since we posted the packet that has extended the possible term on that position.
Okay.
So that's all. I'm going to turn it over to.
Is there anything on these to indicate which is the amended one and which?
On which one?
Well, we just got a handout here on the dais for job description, limited term community development. The other one has the exact same.
It's just the only thing that's changed is the title of the supervisor. And so the community development director.
But there is nothing to obviously
Tell the difference between them.
Just who it reports to is the only thing that changed.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we're going to put the correct one in the packet.
So there actually is, Bruce, on these two that don't have the big title, at the very bottom it says revised 5/127 and 3/9/26.
Right.
Oh, okay.
No, I just want to change it. Get it done to start in the presentation.
So I know this is hard to read from where you're sitting and from where I'm sitting, and we're going to, the interim city manager is going to go through this, and if you want to walk up to any to monitor and look at it, you're welcome to the interim city manager.
I think we had a little technical problem here, so let me just start off. Really, this evening, as difficult as these situations are, there are two factors that are really guiding this discussion. The first one is all of you who passed Measure K. If you had not done that, we would be having a much different conversation. Second is, this particular council were the ones that identified the severity issue and stopped spending. And between the two of those, we're in as rough a position as we're in a much better position than we would have been otherwise. If you go back the years, the general fund of Willits was in pretty reasonable shape. Over the years it ebbed and flowed like any other city does, but it was managed well. Today the general fund it's overspent and it's depleted. It is a huge change, especially for the last few years. And it seems to have started roughly 6 or 7 years ago and accelerated greatly in the past few years to where we are today. And that's just simple as the history of that. So let's get some clarity here because we can get confused in this conversation tonight really easily. So what are we primarily focusing on? Okay, it is non-public safety. Okay, non-public safety employees that are paid partially or fully out of the general fund. All right. Hope that makes sense. So we have a bunch of employees that are paid out of the general fund. We're not talking about any of the sworn officers. We're going to be working with them in the next couple of weeks and going through the same kind of process. So it is the regular employees that you see out on the street and here at City Hall, cetera.
Well, as opposed to the employees that are with the city water and sewer, because
Thank you.
those are enterprise funds. So we're talking about the general fund right now. We're not talking about the enterprise fund. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it's kind of difficult when we say, what happened? What really occurred here? There's been revenue decreases. Those just occur. We've had inflation, strong increases in spending of Measure K. But quite simply, when we look at the last several years of accelerated expenses, nobody in administration or leadership said stop. It's just as simple as that. No one said stop. No one looked over the cumulative impact of spending decisions over years. And every one of those kept growing over the years, and nobody looked back to say, okay, what's the impact of this, this, and this, and how is it impacting us today? We kind of just got on a momentum until somebody said stop, and it's you folks.
I don't have any for today. Did you send it to me today?
I did. That's all right.
You must have it.
So we have now the position that we're in. We have a $2.4 million deficit each year. We have no general fund reserves left to speak to. And at this juncture, I cannot provide you with a solution to the problem. What I can do is bridge the next 3.5, 4 years to get you to a solution. That we can do, but a solution isn't possible yet. We have a lot more work to do on that.
So Bob, would you characterize this as phase one?
I would imagine you will go through several phases. And as an example, during the Great Recession, things really hit cities hard. The finances were terrible. And in the city that we were managing at the time, we actually did 3 large reorganizations in 8 months, just because there's so much dollar loss in such a fast period of time. I'm not looking for that kind of thing here in Willits, but I won't be surprised at all if in another year you need to downsize a little bit more. Nothing like the major one that we're being forced into today. But you will make changes over time, even before you get to that particular position of getting to a solution, which is there. Got these graphics. So
would you like a 3-minute break to go to your computer and resend it to her?
I feel like the public would like to see that.
Yeah, we reserve that. All right.
Okay, so we're in a predicament, and what do we do? What are the steps? And I think it has been brought up already. There are steps out of this. It's not an impossibility, but there are a series of very specific things that need to be done. Tonight, we're going to talk about 2 of the biggest initial steps, and then council and I will be discussing what are the next logical steps about and after this. So, to get us toward a balanced general fund budget, there's a few things to do. First off, if we take all of our general fund revenues and we take all of our annual Measure K revenues and put them together, that's part of the equation. The next part is we have to cut out almost 1.3 million in salaries and labor costs. The combination of all that gets us very close to a balanced budget coming up. Y'all get that? Okay, so just as Andy was talking about general fund revenues, you mix it with Measure K, and then we have to take out 1.3 million-ish of labor costs.
Now, to be clear, that's not all the Measure K money. That's just the annual income coming per year. correct that 1.3 number we had a little while ago, but you're talking 1.2.
Yeah, I'm just a little on the more conservative side with
Good
this.
deal. That just double checking.
Okay, the next step of this, which is, you still got to run a city. So even when we downsize, we're trying to make sure that we can run a city as best as possible and still provide services out to all of you. And we're going to cut kind of pretty significantly, 1.3 million. So the next piece of the puzzle, the financial puzzle, which is very nice, this right here are the three items we just talked about. And over here, we have almost $3.5 million in Measure K savings. It's just cash sitting in an account that didn't get spent, which is a wonderful thing for us right now. Because the city, especially the city that has to transition over the next 3-4 years into a more permanent solution, is going to need reserves. So we need to take and transfer the Measure K savings into the general fund reserves. This full financial picture can carry the city comfortably through almost any kind of scenario that we can reasonably think of. So pulling those resources together in that way, I think you have a nice route for the next 3.5-4 years. So the next part of this is, the first part we're looking to handle finances. The second part is downsizing. And we really aren't going to be downsizing as our major effort here. What we're doing is we're changing the way we're going to work. Because if you take a bureaucracy, typically, and if you just cut out a strip of people when you have to downsize, and it's done, it usually creates huge inefficiencies. You haven't thought through a process. You haven't looked at how can we do better with fewer people. And especially with a city our size, when we're going to be doing very much of the same workload, but with fewer people, we got to change the way we work and radically do that sometimes. So let me talk about the reorganization itself. To get to two things. One, the cost savings we need to have. Two, a newly formed organization. First off, over here, we'll be eliminating the 11 vacant positions. Those positions will provide us with some of our cost savings. So it was nice we had vacancies because it allows us to save money and without having to impact our staff. We still have those 7 layoffs that will occur. That will impact our staff, existing staff members. Last column. These existing staff members are going to receive a layoff notice. But at the same time, they're going to receive a transfer letter, meaning we have a new job description for you. And if you like that job, you have 10 days in which to accept it. And so, actually tomorrow, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we will take and start to restructure the organization by first giving people new job descriptions to help us start to mold a new job and a new way of doing work here. So when we're looking at reorganizing, and what are the kinds of things we consider? So there's the current and upcoming workloads, huge. That's a huge thing. What's coming down the pipe? What are we already contracted in for? What's the priorities of those? Are some of these projects just things we want to get done? Are some of these projects things that are time sensitive, and if we want to get reimbursed, we got to get it done now? And so there's a lot of that going on that needs to go on in every department. And we have to start to look at and reprioritize what we have to get done first and what kind of manpower we're going to put toward it. We'll have legislative requirements. We look at, one thing we did here very, very nicely, we looked at skill sets. Both Deborah and I, we interviewed so many of them. And part of that was trying to understand, okay, you do this job for us right here today. but what other skills, what other things do you do that maybe we can broaden the scope of your job that you already can do, you already know how to do it, and we can help save a job that way. So I have no idea how many people we talked to, but it was fascinating, and it really did help a lot of the process. Team focus. That is a huge one, because no longer, as you start to shrink this organization, no longer can you just say, you go in that department, you go in that department. We have to become melded in a far greater degree, because we have to be able to work together. We don't have the manpower to just slough something off onto one person. So we're going to start meeting a whole lot more frequently in different operational groups, a lot more frequently. Two, we have to be better at sharing work and kicking it back and forth. So a lot of those job descriptions, those new ones I was just talking about, they broaden the actual role of each person. So there's more overlap. So I don't have a person just in a little box silo doing a job. They're much broader now. And once it broadens out, it gives us much more flexibility to flow back and forth and flex back and forth with work that's coming up, because it's always going up and down for everybody. It's just the norm. And then we look at other methods for achieving production needs. One of my recommendations here is taking our personnel function and contracting that out. Why am I going to do that? I've got a good person here today, but she has a certain skill level for us. And for significantly less money, I can get a wide range of services for our employees. I can save money and get a far broader range of professional assistance for our folks. It makes sense. Now, as we're looking at all of this, we have to consider our budgeting constraints the whole time. So we're trying to look at who are the people that work really well together. What's coming up as far as workloads? Are there other ways that we can get this work done? And can we do all of that within a very tight budgetary constraint? And I have to tell you, congratulations to your city, because I think this one took me more time to come up with a new structure. And it was quite interesting. You've seen the little org charts up here on the screen. So for the last several months, I've had those taped all over the walls of my apartment. Because the way I work is I have the org chart, and then written real small by every box is how much they are charged to the general fund. Because that's what's important to me. How do I reduce the dollar amount of the general fund? And so you will see, I can probably show one of these to you, but the interesting part of it is this city, over a period of time, so strangely allocated out costs to different departments for people that although I had a lot of people to choose from in the general fund on who to remove and what not, in fact, this dollar savings to the general fund for every position was very, very low. So there were almost no real options out there for me to reorganize the city and save the requisite amount of money. I have to save about $720,000 in this particular exercise. And with that, it was almost impossible to keep operating units alive and save that amount of money. And so it was a fascinating process. We got there. We still have one department that's not right. Community development, I have not gotten a solution for it. I'll continue working on that. Go along the way. Next steps. Tonight we will be issuing invitations to all impacted employees. We'll be coming down here. We will issue those notices tomorrow. employees who are being actually laid off get 21 days. And so they will still be with us. It will be a time of a lot of work, a lot of transfer of information and knowledge. They will start going back and forth at a higher rate of speed. The transfer notices that we've talked about, those also will be issued tomorrow. Employees that want to stay on in a new position will be given 10 days to make that decision. Team meetings to develop new workflows. This starts the following week. And us as groups are going to be sitting down on a very frequent basis, figuring out what's coming at us, and start as a group to figure out what's the best way that we can all work together and get work done. Now, in almost every one of these scenarios, I have in my mind, what's the best way to get this done? But what I've found over time is if we all work as a unit team and start to look at all the problems, usually some wonderful new ideas come up. And even sometimes I might come back to council because of some of the ideas that came up and make changes to the reorganization plan as it looks like today. And that's great because a lot of good heads working together always can come up with great new solutions. We'll have training for people who are assuming new responsibilities. That will be going on very heavily for the next 6 months as well. Some folks will get new responsibilities. Some are getting old ones back. So it's a kind of a whole mix of different things. Recruiting new staff and services is necessary. You know what? Some people may not want the new job. That's okay. And they can stay with us for the 21 days, and then they'll be off and on their own, and we will re-recruit behind them for that particular position. We will then, as a group, really need to sit down and hone down our communications. We have to communicate new expectations, hours, work times, things like that. We're gonna be different because there's not as many of us. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But how do we continue to provide you with the best services possible, be open as much as possible, et cetera, et cetera. We need to define that and see what we think is best way that we can provide service and still get other work done. And then bring in new recommendations to the council for the consideration. So how we're gonna work, why we're doing it that way, other options that are available, we'll bring that back to the council. They're the ones that tell us yes, no, or that they want changes. So with that, that is an overview of where we are heading. And I'll get back up on my seat and I'll be happy to answer any questions. No, we're ready for questions.
Okay.
She has a lot of the technical data, so
All right, so we're going to go as before. We're going to allow each member of the council to state your thoughts. And then we're going to open it up for public expression. I will start by saying we have to change. You know, business as usual is a usual business, and there has to be a change here. One of the things that I'm very happy with is the transparency that we're going through of not just the audits, but the personnel and working together. And this is not to the city employees. This is not personal. I mean, as I said earlier, I know them all by name. I know almost every city employee by name. This is a tough job to make these decisions, but right-sizing the city is something that we either do or we have another major discussion and we dissolve the city. Honestly, it's to that point. And so to that, I'm going to, you may start with you, Bruce, or you may start with Jerry.
No, you can start, Jerry.
Okay, Jerry, you're up. Okay.
Well, like Tom pointed out, you know what, I had a hard time sleeping this whole weekend because we got this packet and then some more stuff. So it's something we've known is coming that we needed to look at. We've been waiting for Bob's recommendations as to what's the best way to go about this. And again, it's not personal with anybody that's affected. I mean, like Tom, I know everybody, and I worked here for 30 years, and so we obviously have to change the way we're doing things. We probably should have been doing it sooner. Again, when I remember plenty of times asking, do we have the money for this? Are we good for this? And hearing, yes, we're good. And I'll be honest with you, I've heard it from a lot of folks, and I guess I should have been more cynical. But again, I'm not here to point fingers or anything. I think, like Tom says, it's really important that we right the ship and move forward. And I think what I was getting at with Andy is that this is phase one. I'm going to be lying to you if I tell you that we might not be the only cuts we do in the next couple of months and how we do things, or look at what we're doing, what we're buying. We're going to be looking at a lot of things. So that's all I'm going to say.
Larry?
It's harder on me than I think for the rest of the people, because I've known the majority of people that work for the city since they were 14 years old, and I had them in high school class. And so when I see them, it's hard for me to say, we're going to lose you, or you're going to have to change, or whatever that is. And I've seen the person that is really immature to a person maybe that is 50 or 60 years old. And so I just think that I spent a lot of time at night thinking of who, was a stinker in my class and I could finally get rid of them, but that is not what's going to happen. It's just going to be hard. Thank you, and that's the best thing I can say.
Bruce?
This, I guess what occurs to me is that we've really known this isn't new information. Rod told us $2.4 million February or March of last year. We didn't have a pro auditor kind of guy combing through the numbers like Andy to confirm it, but we as a council probably have held on to this system longer than I would have, longer than I counseled that we needed to make a change. And I respect what the process that we're going through. I'm kind of the opinion if you've got to make it, if you've got to adjust, you're better off to adjust and try and do it in one time instead of three. I probably have taken, I think we ought to be looking at pay cuts across the board for all employees. I think we ought to be looking at redefining the benefit programs for employees and the health insurance, how much health insurance coverage we provide and the quality of it. I think we should be looking at the health insurance of the council members as being a non-essential expense. I think that we ought to be looking at privatizing functions within the city that are often privatized in other communities successfully. So I guess that I'm being told here that those will come later, or if we need to. We have a budget that is relying on a sunsetting revenue stream. it never really made sense. I'm pretty sure I didn't vote for it, be quite honest with you, when it was up. I generally don't vote for things like that, so, but to try and bolster up the general fund of the city with a sunsetting tax just doesn't make any sense. You know, the half-cent sales tax that we did in 2001 or 3 or whenever that was for transportation to replace a diminishing or non-existent gas tax fund that the city had for street maintenance is one thing. I mean, and that's why I asked Andy about it, because, you know, part of this budget in the past 5 years has incorporated a fair amount of that tax revenue into wages, into ongoing wages, and it wasn't supposed to be used for that. So, you know, I think that I think we have been talking for the 12 months or so, or 13 months, well, no, it's probably right about 12 months I've been here now, that we have some serious problems, and I think that the $700,000 solution is somewhat, I support it, but I probably personally feel like we had an obligation to the community to be looking now at something more. So for whatever that's worth, that's kind of my take on where we are. I think we're trying to do it, and I think staff is trying to do it in the most sensible way that attempts to maintain key and core operations of the city. You know, I've talked about having a strong mayor instead of a city manager. It's kind of risky, but we pay a lot of money to a city manager, and I think that, you know, it's not all the fault of the city. I think that local governments have been kind of the last trustworthy unit of government in the state, and the state has taken advantage of us in that way and forced us to raise our own money instead of the money all the money that we send them. It's impressive to me that out of the tax revenues generated in this town from property tax, that we get $500,000 of it. That to me is embarrassing, but that's, I don't know what the assessed valuation of the city of Willits is. I used to know. Does anybody up here know? $400 or $500 million? I used to know it, should know it, but you know, I think that we've been put in an untenable situation because you know, that other people get to touch the money before we do, and they just don't let go of it very easy. And so, you know, the state obviously has some of its own problems as well, but they don't have to sit in a room with their friends and family and try and deal with the consequences. That irritates me.
Okay. Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to share, you know, my connection to a lot of these decisions are also personal. I know that my fellow council members have known many of the staff members for much longer than I have. I'm kind of the newbie here. But, you know, I have to, all these names on the work chart here, I mean, I have their children. I mean, I'm keenly aware, in my classes, I'm keenly aware that decisions affect whole families. It isn't just one individual or this person or that person. We're talking whole families and communities and a level of trust. Some of these employees have been with us for a number of years, and it's going to be very hurtful. And so that's, again, as a person who has also been laid off, as a person who's been quit and fired and escorted out of a building, as a person who has gone through every type of separation possible, legal and illegal, it never makes sense. It's never right. You never feel good about it. It's not supposed to. It's just going to be something that as each individual processes their own role, whether it's going to be something positive, it's going to create a new beginning for them, or whether it's going to just remain a negative, and each person is going to have to deal with that. So I do not look forward to putting that on individuals. I did want to stress, though, and it's been said different ways, I just want to be crystal clear here. You know, there are some people that were talking about getting notices tomorrow. Those are not the people that we have found to be at fault for bringing the city down. I just want them to be crystal clear here. We did not look at individuals and say, well, it was her fault, it was his fault, they're going to get released. That is just not the case. And I just want the community itself to know that there is no correlation in that way, as Mr. Richardson had previously described. It's really a connection between the needs of the city and the resources available through the personnel. And it's not going to be a decision that people are going to like or enjoy. I'd like to conclude my comments by talking a little bit about the future, because a lot of this is going to be predicated on what we're going to be doing in the future. We're going to have to continue to make choices and decisions, tough calls. There might be more cuts to personnel in the future. And so what I'm asking for at this point is somebody who's potentially step up here. This is not a great job, but not a lot of fun at this time, but we need new people. We need fresh blood on the city council here. We got an election coming up, and we're looking for 2 positions will be opening, and we're looking for people who can do this. We cannot make a decision as a community to go backwards. We cannot go back to the people who were serving on the council previously. We need to move forward to the next generation of people, and we're already going through some changes. It's already going to be tough, but we absolutely need to be able to move forward together, and that means helping each other. And it may mean, like, you know, you might be sitting there like, I care a lot and I want to help the city, but I'm not really good with financing. And the truth is, you can learn all this stuff. Nobody's an expert in financing, but if you care enough, you can learn. And I think there's enough people who can help you to achieve that. So I am interested in finding new blood and new interested people in the council, because it's this decisions are going to continue on. They're going to keep going over and over again. So we need to make sure that we look forward and we do not waste our time going backwards with people making excuses about why it wasn't them and all along. So that's what I would like to say about our current situation. It is not a pretty situation, but I do appreciate the work that Mr. Richardson and some of his helpers have helped to create a proposal for us to look at. And then we'll have to make our choices. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. And 10 years from now, history will look back as a decision that was started tonight was either the absolute correct decision or we were village idiots, okay? Honestly, let me tell you, the decision that we're making tonight, whatever it is based on as much information as we have right now. And it has taken a while. It's taken us, because we were behind in audits, because, as Bruce said, it's been 12 months, we didn't know what the numbers were. But now that we're, and I'll use your quote there, Mr. Heath, 98% sure these are the numbers, we don't have a choice. We have to make a decision. And the decision is move forward or stay the same. And so tonight, special meeting, in about an hour or so, we'll figure out we'll know what the decision was. So we'll do it just like the adoption of the resolution. I'm looking for a motion and possibly a second, and then we're going to open it up for public expression.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the reorganization of the city department in response to the declaration of a fiscal emergency, establishing new classifications and the related classification, specification, and pay ranges, and authorizing the interim city manager to initiate layoffs and transfers and take other necessary administrative actions to effect this change.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And so to the public, you'll get one bite of the apple here to come up and give your public expression and tell us your thoughts. Helen?
Helen Sims, Redux. I have a question about the new staffing. Other than just paying out PTO to date and salary, will there be any extra things for an employee who is actually separated?
So there's not a severance package as you're talking about.
Okay, all right. And the second half of this is, do any of the transferred positions, are any of them subject to salary reduction because their job has changed a lot? And maybe the combination of things, is anybody going to face that?
I'm not aware of anybody who's being asked to do less, if that's your question.
No, I'm being asked if they're going to be paid less because they're changing jobs. You go from here to here. Is there anybody
I
subject
think
to
that,
that?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Deborah might be able to.
Yeah, we kept pretty much everyone the same. However, we've reduced the hours for some folks.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Who else wants to have public expression? Nikki?
My name is Nikki Caldwell. I'm going to start with Bob's statement. He said that nobody said stop. May I remind everyone that multiple people over the last couple of years tried to say stop, including our finance director and other employees. Past council and management refused to listen and ignored it. It's nothing new. The city lawyer said for declaring an emergency, there has to be an unexpected emergency. Nothing here is unexpected. We all knew since months and years where we were heading, and again, we tried to stop. Again, no one wanted to listen. When I looked at the new chart, there's two contracts again, contract positions. One is engineer, one is HR. So here we are, as the employees for the city of Willits, we are now being asked again to go with issues to a contracted HR company who is getting their paycheck from the city, who will do whatever the city will tell them to do. We, as the employees, deserve better. Thank you.
Okay, Robin.
I'm Robin Leeler. I did run for city council, part of the new blood that I was expecting to get elected. I lost by a very small margin at the very last minute. I want to say I'm really disappointed in what's come out. Andy Heath presented a really good program. He did not say that this justifies a fiscal emergency. He said this happened over a long time. It's going to take years to correct the path. And I want to know what happened, why the rush. You just passed a fiscal emergency declaration, and now you're jumping to, okay, we got to fire people right now. This is going to happen tomorrow. This is a plan that has been, something sounds so choreographed by this whole scenario that I just cannot believe it. Transparency was one of the hallmarks of everybody's campaign. I hear that word here tonight a lot, transparency. And yet, you are asking for an authorization for a total reorganization, layoffs, salary adjustments that have been planned for a really long time. Where's the transparency in that? I remember a year ago that you were talking about the changes that needed to be made and talking to the department heads. There's 7 department heads, and they were going to be consulted about their ideas about how to reduce the budget, whether it was people or other ways of doing that. What happened to that idea? I was at the meeting, was it 2 years ago, where there was a consultant that was trying to heal the rift between that city council, the incoming city council, and the staff. The staff had been totally neglected in all these decisions, and I see you doing it again. We're paying a consultant. this was part of what Bender did so much to his advantage, was to sideline the regular employees and hire consultants. And here you are furthering that. The amount of money you are paying to a consultant would keep 2 more jobs in the mix. And I just think that that is a bad decision. Okay. And I'm wondering why we're not talking about the enterprise funds. I think mismanagement of those funds, which, spent a lot more than they took in revenues, should be part of this conversation. Give it some time. Why are you rushing? Let us really do transparency. I know we need to move forward, but let's move forward together. We heard tonight that you're not even consulting with the representatives of the employees, that the union reps have not been in conversation with anybody. Nobody has talked to them, which is the usual. Thank you. My time is up.
Manny.
Manuel Orozco, Finance Director. I wasn't consulted. Nobody talked to me about how we could do savings or anything like that. One of the items I did try and bring up was what Bruce talked about, the 2003 Measure A, and it does have an expenditure plan that does have FTEs associated with it. That's what was passed way back when. So I gave it over to you guys to have it as a part of consideration, but it wasn't. So just go from there.
Okay, who else? Bear, and then you're next. Oh, Bear, you'll be next. Okay. Okay.
I just wanted to ask 2 questions to clarify. That there's going to be 13 fewer positions, it says here. So, and it says there'll be 7 layoffs tomorrow. The other 6, is that the vacancies?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
So the 13 is layoffs and vacancies. And the other question, which Bruce sort of asked about, is any savings being part of this other than salaries and people being let go? Are there other things you're actually working on as part of this package? Like he was talking about reducing medical or whatever. Is anything other than laying off people part of this savings?
The answer is yes, and we're going to have multiple discussions, and we're starting at this square.
Okay.
And we're going to continue on.
Thanks.
Did you have?
Ragda Zakaria. I'm very impressed with the new plan, Bob. Sorry, I don't have my glasses. It's kind of thinking out of the box. And I like the idea of putting reserves from Measure K into the reserves. But my main question for you, how long you're going to be in that position right now?
I can only be here by law until early May, so I will be leaving.
So what kind of policies and procedures you are going to set in place so we don't get in that mess again?
You know, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Do you want me to?
Well, I can tell you that I was a executive level person for the sheriff's office for many years.
Yeah.
And I saw a poster once that said, employees do what you inspect, not what you expect. And that resonated with me. And I'm not saying that our employees that we have employees that are intentionally doing anything wrong, but I think that the primary purpose of a city council, the 5 people who are elected here, is to have oversight of city policies and procedures. And unfortunately, and I don't think I'm going to say this as a surprise to any city employees, there have been leaders in the city that maybe were not inspected as much as they were expected to make correct decisions. And so the responsibility is going to rely on this and future city councils.
My next question for Bob, have you thought of shared, Bob, right?
Yes.
So have you thought of shared positions, because that's done in corporate level. When they downsize, instead of letting go, you do shared positions or part-time positions, so that employee doesn't like left out in the cold. And I have to agree with Manny. I've been here only 3 years. I'm a new kid on the block. But I've watched the previous council, all the mismanagement and bad decisions, and they never listened to him. They never listened to the public. That's why I'm saying policies and procedures needs to be imposed on the city council as well. So they don't have it just free range of doing what they want, because that's why we are in this mess. I mean, each of the past ones and you need to be held accountable. And I agree with somebody spoke. I know you're doing layoffs, but I'd just like to encourage the shared positions or part-time till we fix. And like Mr. Bruce said, look at other ideas or things to cut our costs today, not in 10 months. So the employees don't be hammered 110%. It needs to be, because I know you all have insurance and whatever, you know what I mean, which is fine. But I know for a fact, 2 of you said we will quit if we don't have that insurance. So there is a lot of a new dynamic needs to do business in a new way. I agree with you, Bob. But who's going to manage the new business to be done?
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? It's a very important topic. If there's something you want to say, by all means. Eric.
Eric Hart. First off, I don't envy Bob, or for that matter, any of you, the position that you're in. I've been on both sides of this. I've been in Bob's position. I've been laid off as well. For me, that actually turned out to be a positive thing in my life, and I hope that anyone that does get laid off from this has that same experience. I'm not going to talk about all the history. There's no sense going into that. What we're here to talk about tonight is what's on the agenda for today. I don't have all the information that Bob had in making the decisions. There are a couple of things that I saw in the packet that raised questions and concerns. I wanted to raise those. One is the biggest impact, the biggest potential impact that I see to the city is in the public works change. And where I'm concerned in that is really, there's no names on this packet, so I don't know exactly what your plans are, but I want to make sure that whoever ends up running that organization, the combination of those two makes sense, but whoever runs that organization needs to know what they're doing, because mistakes made in public works, deferred maintenance will end up costing the city tenfold what you're saving in the long term. So just make sure that we're doing the right thing with the right people there. The other thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is with the cuts, bringing in contractors, and in particular HR and engineering. Historically, what I've seen don't pan out very well when you're contracting that out, for some of the reasons that were brought up, but also for others. And in addition, there will be more. There will be more things that you find out that, oh, we actually need somebody to do this. Now we're going to have to go out and contract someone, and in the long term, that's going to cost the city more money as well. The third is actually vaguely related, but as Councilmember Alaniz brought up, there are 2 positions coming up. I would consider you to think about maybe expanding the pool of people that you can pull from. So rather than just within city limits, you have a large pool of people around the city that depend on Willits. It will require some changes to allow that, but think about the pros and cons of that. You might get some replacements on here that can actually help drive the city in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to express their thoughts? Laura, was that your hand up? No?
Walter.
Walter, okay.
Good evening. I'm Walter Colin, Service and Facilities Director for the City of Willits. The past year has been really difficult for all of us. We've all looked at what we can do in all our departments to make changes. When I came here, I came into an untenable position where We had lost a city engineer. We lost 2 very skilled personnel that left, and there was a big void. The city manager's idea was to put out an RFP, to have 5 engineering firms split up and have this farmed out and stuff to consultants. We had 5 engineering firms over a 3-year contract period, and one of the firms had 15 task orders. Instead of doing it in-house, we spent $1.5 million. And it put us on a downward spiral in public works where we became dependent on outside consultants. I worked hard, and so did my staff, to get out of that 3-year contract, get through it, and instead of relying totally on outside engineers, we've tried to build up our department, doing project management in-house to save money. We've also brought in a really skilled civil engineer who's part of this community. He has a licensing in Oregon, but he just took his civil engineer's license 2 weeks ago for California, trying to bring him up. This new plan that's been presented breaks this up, and it loses our momentum. What we're going to do is go back out to an outside engineering firm and lose more money going out. Instead of keeping it in-house, out of that $1.5 million, I estimate more than half of that could have been kept in-house with project management. We spent money on projects that we didn't have to if we had done it in-house. When I first came here, I asked to look at the budget with a loaded engineer's price and stuff for $200,000. We could have more than saved that if we had brought someone in, and no one has listened. I have to say I back up Manny. When Bob first got here, I presented a written response and stuff, what I thought we could do within our service and facilities department, but I was not asked anything else afterwards, how we can save money and where we're saving money. And so I feel that there's not been a lot of good communications. I feel that the plan has some merit to it, but I think it's not ready to be voted on yet. I think there's still some questions where some of the departments are being broken up, including mine, and you're adding people from another department, giving them raises, pulling people out who are qualified, and it's going to be a huge disruption. I don't think it's going to serve the city well in the future in terms of projects or where we lead to with this. I just think it's a flawed plan right now. I think you just have to seriously look at this and see what's going to be best for the city now, but also in the next 3 or 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to express their thoughts and opinion? Going once, going twice. Okay, public expression is closed. All right, we have motion and a second. You've heard public expression. You've had a chance to think about this. To Bruce, I will say, yes, this is something that we have been slowly kicking the can down the road. I know that there was a discussion to do this action 2 weeks before Christmas. And to me, that was untenable. I mean, nobody really is happy to be up here tonight being faced with this decision, but it's like we have to make a decision. So any other council people would like to express their thoughts?
Well, I appreciate the comments, and I think that to respond to them, I guess all I can really say is that I still feel committed that we need to make this decision, and we need to make it now. And we're going to have to be smart enough to fix the mistakes that we're making when we make this decision, with the decision we made. We just have to be smart enough to fix it. It's just gone, to me, it's not going far enough, but it's gone on far too long. So I'm sorry, but I still think we need to move forward now.
Anybody else? One of the things that I really have to say is, we all smile when we talk about being a Safeway and it taking an hour instead of 10 minutes to get a gallon of milk because people tell us problems. And decreasing the city workforce clearly will result in longer delays of taking care of some issues. That just goes without saying. So many people can only do so much. And there we are. So we have a motion and a second to the clerk.
Councilmember Burton,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Kransky,
Yes.
Alanis,
Aye.
Mayor Almond.
Aye. Okay, moving on to item number 5, adopt a resolution approving a policy temporarily limiting the cash out of leave accrual balances to 40 hours from March 1st, 2026 to February 28th, 2027 to the employees. This does not take away any financial money you have. It's just limiting the amount of hours you can cash out. Let me say this, the city has a problem of money in, money out. And we have to make sure that we have our payroll ready. To give you an example, let me tell you that every other week, our payroll is approximately $240,000. And our job is to make sure we have that amount of money in there so salaries and benefits are taken care of. And what we're saying is it's in line with what used to be the city policy and what's in line with other government entities that limits the amount of hours that you can cash out at any one time. Some people will cash out right before Christmas of, a couple hundred hours to pay for Christmas. Well, you get 6 or 7 employees doing that, and it makes an impact on the money in, money out for the city. It's not a golden goose for the city. So that's where we are, and I know this will affect bank accounts of families, but we're trying to make sure that we can make payroll each payroll. So I hope I didn't take away the wind from your sails there, Deborah.
No, not at all. It could actually cost some employees because to the degree that they're hitting their caps, which is a problem when you're doing more work and you're having to cover more areas and you have fewer positions, if you feel like you can't take leave, so this is a Band-Aid, not a fix. Then if you can't sell it, then you might not be able to accumulate more, and in a way that costs you that benefit. So it could. This Band-Aid is because the city has a good policy in place. That policy is in the MOUs and it's been used before, and I've had staff come and talk to me about it, and that's the one that's IRS compliant. And it says that you can make an irrevocable election in December to sell your accruals, some of them or all of them, in the next year. A vacation. Okay. Okay. So it has that policy in place. That policy could be amended in the future, but it has that policy in place. From what I can tell, and it was innocently done, I believe, sometime in early 2024, someone realized that there were huge balances of leave accruals, which causes a liability to the city should people leave, and it can be a hit on your budget. And they said, let's get rid of some of these, and one of the ways to do that is to allow people to sell them for a specific period of time, put controls on it. That IRS will allow that. You typically do that for a short period. What happened here was that never ended. And so in 2024, sometimes people were selling 200, 300 hours at a time of their accruals. It's a huge hit to the budget. And so it was a hit to the budget to the tune, when I subtracted out people who left, because when they leave you have to pay out their balances, it still amounted to about $260,000 to $270,000 each year, 2024 and 2025. That's $500,000 over the last 2 years. All this is asking is, let's take 1 year and take a breath. And then the council and the staff can figure out what policy they want moving forward.
So it's my understanding those accruals amount to $875,000, $900,000 right now.
There's a lot of accruals, yes.
So is this saying, I guess I'm a little confused, that they cannot accrue more than 40 hours in the next year without taking?
No. What it's saying is that they can take leave. They can keep accruing so long as they don't hit a cap, But if you want to sell for cash or vacation, because normally, if you have a leave program that's healthy, that people use for respite and they take leave and things like that, and maybe they sell 40 hours because if we have an average hourly wage of $55 and we sell 40 hours of vacation, that's $2,200. And if 30 people do that, that's only $66,000, not $270,000. So knowing that, that's a normal leave program. So if people take their leave as a vacation, we've already budgeted that. That's not a hit to our cash flow. If we don't take vacation and sell it, that nails our cash flow. And
Well,
that's part of what we're trying to avoid, for just a break until we can get on our feet again.
Well, as an accounting, we should be carrying that liability as.
We do,
on
and
the
it used to be
book.
called GASB 68, and now it's GASB 100, which will require us to look back 5 years and take an average of what's been happening and accrue that. So it is there, and we have to put that in our financial statements.
I mean, I don't have a wide breadth of experience, but in the businesses that I've been involved in, it's you either use it or you get paid out at the end of the year. I mean, this
That's one way.
accruing at multiple years seems to, is it an interest-free loan to the city? Is that why they like it? I mean, why would they allow themselves to accrue that liability? And why would the employee want the city to hold their money for them?
There are many reasons why the accruals happen. Sometimes someone is just doing so much, working so hard in such a short-staffed situation that they have to, I think the city manager is pointing at his financial expert.
No, so typically, I'll just give you my 2 cents on what I think the questions are regarding vacation sellbacks. Typically, vacation, admin leave, not comp time, those sometimes sick leave, sellbacks are admin leave, all kinds of types of leave, personal leave. The ability to sell that back is promulgated by an MOU, okay, or an agreement, okay, between the employee group, which sometimes could be management, or even directors for that matter, if it's in their contract, and the city itself. So those rules are set forth, and those rules specify how much can be sold back by any particular bargaining group, and it differs from bargaining group to bargaining group. I've put budgets together in the past that the police union only allows you to sell back 40 hours, but maybe the general unit allows you to sell back 60. Okay, well, I budget for that, okay? Because I conservatively budget, I build it in as an expected cost every year. Even if it doesn't happen, it's vacancy savings, or not vacancy savings, it's savings because they didn't sell back. But you have to have the ability budgetarily to pay that if it's an allowed benefit. The value of that benefit is articulated every year in your city's financial statements, in the government-wide statements only. Okay, so it's not in the basic financial statements. You're only going to find it in the government-wide, which is the first set of financial statements on the balance sheet. And it's going to tell you what the value of the compensated absences, short-term and long-term, in the governmental funds, which is essentially the general fund, okay, and the enterprise funds as a whole. Okay, so it's both your enterprise funds combined. I don't know what that number is, but it's easy enough to turn to that page in your recent in the 23-24 audit, and you can see what that is.
It's $877,000.
Could be, yeah, could be. I'm not sure, but that sounds about right because that's what most cities are. Now, the cap, that's a completely different story. Many cities have caps where once you reach a certain cap, you can't earn any more vacation, okay? Some cities have a cap where once you reach the cap, you're paid out for your accrued vacation, okay? Some cities don't have a cap.
Don't most?
The issue, yeah, oh yeah. So, sure, like at one point in time, the city of San Jose didn't have a cap. And, there were police officers that were retiring with 2,300 hours of sick leave, okay, that they were ultimately paid out for, okay, dollar for dollar, okay, at their then going rate. So, but those have changed. I mean, the rules have changed to more control because it is a huge liability, okay, to these cities. Ultimately, I think everybody needs to remember what the purpose of having vacation or extra leave is. It's not necessarily to get paid out for it. It's to take time off, recognizing that if you get admin leave or executive leave, like a lot of managers do, managers are typically on site working for, a lot more than 40 hours a week in some cases, depending on what the season is or what they're doing. So that's why they get that time, okay, so that they can take it off. A lot of that time should be taken off, and I would construe that if people aren't taking the time off and never take a vacation, that their productivity may be less than that of an employee who is being managed to a degree and being told, you need to take your vacations. This is part of your well-being and your work-life balance. So that's why you get vacation, to take it off, not to sell it back per se.
Well, if you're in a fiduciary role with the community, they, at least in banks, there's a requirement that you take it is not, you can't buy it out, you have to take off 2 weeks.
That would be a meet and confer issue.
Yeah, so that's why this is a Band-Aid and not a fix. These are some of the things that Bob alluded to, that some of the speakers have alluded to, that will come up over time, and the city will need to, this is a multi-pronged problem that's going to take multi-pronged solutions. It'll include revenue thoughts. It'll include other types of cost thoughts. This is just a Band-Aid for now to stop, to take 260 or 70,000 down to 66 or 70,000. That's all, a year.
I have a question about the 40 hours. So is that 40 hours, like, the policy is going to go from March, it says from March 2026 to the end of February 2027, but is that 40 hours per year? In what year? The calendar year, the fiscal year, or that year?
So it could be, that can be clarified. So the council has some options in this item itself. I didn't spell them all out, but the council could give staff direction to say, I want this to happen in a fiscal year, or I want this to happen in a calendar year. They also could say, I want 60 hours, not 40. So I think that's kind of a discussion and a policy decision on your part. I just wanted to put a light on the problem so that we could take a look at how we might fix it.
Well, I was curious about how you came up with that number 40. You talked about, and you just mentioned just now, you're talking about 267,000 as far as the last year was with the leave buyouts. And you mentioned that, presumably what you just said just now is that at 40 hours, that could conceivably go as low as 66.
25% of the current
25% of it,
yeah.
Okay. Because it doesn't really seem to be wouldn't be a point if we only saved 5%, right? I mean, what would be the point of upsetting the apple cart?
At
really to save
least
5%?
half might be good,
Okay.
Okay. And so that would be probably around an 80-hour decision. But anything right now that you do to save money, that moving forward, this is going to, however, in this case, some of this, if people don't hit the cap, is going to kick some of the can down the road. So I just want to be transparent and honest, and there's that word again, about that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just hard to. It's like when this time period of 40 hours exists. Like, are we going to go back to the people who already? Like, let's say, for example, we make a calendar year. So anybody who cashed out, that's going to cut out of their 40 hours.
I
already.
Specified a year from March 1st to February 28th.
Check. So it would be from anybody who does it as of today, or as of March 1st, basically.
Yeah.
They accrue that based on their date of employment,
Yes.
not a calendar.
No, this is just a temporary
I
policy
understand,
change.
but in terms of people accruing that, it's
Based on their-
done anytime
And
during.
it changes based on the number of years they have, correct?
Does it constitute a no-interest loan to the city?
Typically, the time frame is, again, dictated by an MOU or some sort of an agreement, but in most cases, it's by fiscal year.
Are we paying interest? Maybe.
Are we paying interest? No.
Oh, no.
No.
We're not paying interest. However, if you allow caps and people carry those vacation hours through the years,
Pay it out
what
at
they
the higher
were
rate.
paid back here is a lot different than what they're paid up here.
Yeah, so if a police officer accrues 160 hours, Bruce, and then becomes a police sergeant, and he decides to cash out, he or she will get paid a police sergeant salary. and
Well, that's not
police-
right.
Well, I'm just telling you that. Okay, Jerry.
Okay,
Jerry, you're-
No, I'm not going to share it.
Jerry.
so in essence, what we're trying to do is just, from a financial standpoint, we're not solving the problem that Bruce has highlighted. But the way I see it is, when I would prepare my budget, I would plan in the old days, we would go by, you could sell back X amount. So when we did our yearly budget, I would say that, depending on where employees were.
30, 40, whatever
Yeah,
it
that
was.
people were going to do so many cash buyouts of whatever we allowed them to do. And so we would always budget that could potentially happen that year, hoping that they could take the time off, and they chose to take the time off instead. But, so I think what this is merely going to do, again, not a solution long-term, but more so that we know that we can budget more accurately how many are cash, unless somebody up and leaves us and then we owe them everything at once, that if they stay, that, yeah. So I think it's more of a control issue so that we can better figure out our budget than anything else, is what we're trying to do right now. And so when you say a year, if we said, in our resolution just said this year, it's just to help us get over that. And if along the way especially with the employees that are governed by unions, that we meet and confer and we're able to come to an agreement with them, that could change with those
Moving
folks.
forward, yeah.
Is that how I?
All right. All right. Any more questions?
Curious, I suspect there'll be some opinions.
Yes.
All right, we're going to open up public opinion, public question. Nikki?
My name is Nikki Caldwell. All right, so the 40 hours cap with the IRS is just the vacation, not the comp time, nothing. And as far as I know, I could be wrong, that vacation time is capped, I believe, at 240. If you're over that, you have to take it or you get it paid out. Our comp time is capped at 120. People like me who didn't want to do the OT payout from the city because we knew in what financial statement she was, I put it on my comp time because I didn't want the city to have to pay me overtime. So now I'm getting a kick in the butt, putting it in comp time because I won't be able to take it out. Sick time accrues bi-weekly. Half of that will be paid out at separation unless you are our ex-assistant city manager, then you were allowed to take it off. The resolution actually states that beginning March 2028, we are supposed to be talking about possibly extending that. So what is the cap that you thought about? Is it March 27 or is it March 28? Because, I'm sorry, we're talking about a year. Here it clearly goes from March 1st, 2026 to March 1st of 2028. So now we have in 2 years.
Is there a typo in the resolution?
I don't know, it's
What is
in
it
there.
correct?
What are you looking at?
Just for 1 year.
It's for 1 year.
One year.
So if a motion is made, it will correct that.
Okay.
In my agenda, but maybe somewhere else, seems to be 1 year.
I can,
And this,
it's on number 5. Do you want me to go get it?
No, we're
but
correct.
it doesn't impact you or your union.
I'm not only talking for me, I have
Okay,
coworkers.
okay.
And they are not willing or scared to talk, so sadly I have to do it.
I'm looking at the resolution, I don't see where it says 2028.
Do you have to?
Future leave sale program consideration.
It's number 5, I believe.
2028.
Yeah,
Number 5.
number 5.
Oh, wow.
It's February 28th of 2027.
Go
Yeah,
further down.
Seems like a pretty typo.
The next
Yeah,
one
5, it's a
on number
typo.
5, it
Yeah,
says.
It says it
I'm
in
looking
3
at
other
it.
places, it's 2027.
Okay, we're going to correct that.
Okay, so then the others, wasn't Mr. Burton talking about pay cuts? I hear her talking about it's good if you wait until next year because you maybe get more money and you get it paid out. But if we go by what Mr. Burton says, So we accrued it at $25 an hour, but then we got our suggested pay cut, and then in the future, we get to use it at 20 bucks an hour? How is that fair? And I don't personally see any raises in the future, so why would we bring that even up the way she did? And I understand this situation is severe, but the laughing and the giggling is almost frustrating to the point where, I'm sorry, I don't see anything funny in that. Nothing at all.
Thank you. Okay. Right, other public comment?
Tamara Alanis, 4 packets I reviewed before this meeting, then changes just now and changes again. I'd like to have the right information in the packet, and I think the public would as well. And we'd like it the first time. Thank you.
Anybody else like to public comment? Going once, going twice. Public expression is closed. All right, to the council. We have a motion and a no, we don't have a motion for a second.
No, we can't do that.
No.
Do we want to discuss the possibility of changing what's been recommended?
If we can discuss anything.
Okay. Well, 40 seems like a pretty arbitrary number. This is a new change. People are talking about differences. I'm not against the idea of moving that to a 60, at least half their time. But I'm open to any suggestions about doing that. I think it'd be, whether it's high or low, I think it's really just more important that it's steady, that we know what it's going to be. It seems like
Yeah, we have a top number that.
Yeah, we have a top number. I mean, it'd be great to cut that down 25%, but if we were to double that, we'd get, we'd still be cutting in a significant amount.
Okay.
Just some thoughts out there, but I'd be wondering if anybody else is interested in maybe changing that from 40 hours to 60 hours, or 50, or, I mean, I hadn't heard anything as to whether there was any particular reason, and
We'll have council discuss, and you can make the motion if you want. So who else wants to weigh in?
Well, and then correcting the date to say March 2026, is that? So starting now and then ending in 27, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So if a motion is made, whoever makes a motion will make the correct dates, state the correct dates. Somebody else? Okay, looking for a motion if there is going to be one.
Well, I'll go ahead. I'll make a motion that with the following changes, that'd be March 2026 to March 2027. And I would entertain what Councilmember Alanis, I'd say 60 hours.
That'd be February 28 to 27.
Oh, sorry, February. Yeah. So March of 2026 to February of 2027. Okay. With 60-hour cap.
Okay, so that's your motion.
That would be my motion.
I second the motion.
You seconded that motion. Any discussion? To the clerk.
It has to be changed to February 29th of 20, oh wait.
No, next year's not a leap year.
No, you're right. Councilmember Burton,
No.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Stransky,
Yes.
Alanis,
Yes.
Mayor Almond.
Yes, passes 4-1. Okay, so we've concluded our special meeting. We do have regular city council this Wednesday at 6:30. Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.